In the merciless grip of the far north, temperatures plummet to -70 degrees Celsius to -80 degrees Celsius, turning every living creature into lifeless ice statues, snow and frost encasing their entire bodies, freezing them solid in just minutes if health is weak or injured. A hunter in Nunavut stumbles through a blizzard and encounters a polar bear frozen rigid in a standing pose, its white fur buried under 30 centimeters of snow and ice, eyes wide open but lifeless, final breath solidified into a frozen cloud before its mouth. He taps gently with gloved hand on the ice layer over the bear's back, snow cracking and crumbling away in chunks to reveal fur hardened like stone. Yet the bear remains utterly still, its massive body a colossal ice monument amid the endless white plain, the bone-chilling cold making even the hunter shiver as he touches it. An elderly Inuit woman in Greenland kneels beside a seal frozen stiff on the sea ice, thick blubber and gray skin blanketed in dense white snow. Long tusks encased in solid white ice, body stretched out in a final attempt to crawl toward the water, but now motionless. She taps lightly with her fur-booted foot on the ice over the seal's back, snow fracturing and falling away in soft clumps to expose skin hard as wood. Yet the seal lies frozen and unmoving, the -72 degrees Celsius cold making her own breath nearly freeze, wind whipping snow sideways to add fresh layers over the seal's form. A group of Inuit children in Yukon playing outside discover an Arctic fox frozen mid-run, pure white fur coated in 20 centimeters of snow and ice, ears and tail rigid like ice rods, golden eyes now dull and unblinking. One child taps with a gloved hand on the ice over the fox's head, snow shattering and tumbling down with sharp clinks, revealing fur hardened like rock. Yet the fox stands perfectly still, the biting cold frosting the children's eyelashes white, snow continuing to fall and bury the fox deeper. A Yakut reindeer herder in Oymyakon kneels beside a reindeer frozen in mid-migration, antlers crusted with hoarfrost and thick white ice, brown fur turned pale under the ice layer. Wide hooves sunk deep in snow, now locked rigid like wooden stakes. He taps lightly with his hand on the ice covering the antlers, snow breaking away and scattering, exposing antlers hard as stone. Yet the reindeer remains motionless, the piercing cold making his breath freeze into thick white clouds, wind driving snow sideways to cover the entire herd. An Inuit girl in Nunavut sits beside an Arctic hare frozen upright, white fur buried under 15 centimeters of snow and ice, ears stiff and straight, eyes wide open but lifeless. She taps gently with her foot on the ice over the hare's back, snow cracking and falling softly, revealing fur hard as steel wire, yet the hare stands perfectly still. The -68 degrees Celsius cold, freezing her tears on her cheeks, snow falling to bury the small body deeper. An old hunter in Alaska touches a snowy owl frozen on a pine branch, white feathers coated in thick ice, wings folded rigid, golden eyes dull. He taps with gloved hand on the ice over the wing, snow shattering and tumbling down, exposing feathers hard as wood, yet the owl remains perched motionless, the freezing cold frosting his beard white, wind whipping snow sideways to cover it again. An Inuit fisherman in Greenland kneels beside a walrus frozen on an ice floe, long tusks encased in solid white ice, gray skin blanketed in 40 centimeters of snow, body slumped sideways rigid. He taps lightly with his hand on the ice over the tusk, snow breaking away and scattering, revealing skin hard as rock. Yet the walrus lies still, the piercing cold numbing his hand, snow falling continuously to bury it deeper. A young Inuit boy in Nunavut hugs a husky frozen curled in sleep, thick fur matted with 25 centimeters of snow and ice, blue eyes dull, tail stiff. He taps with his hand on the ice over the fur, snow cracking and clinking down, exposing fur hard as ice rods. Yet the husky remains motionless, the -70 degrees Celsius cold freezing his tears, wind blowing snow sideways to cover the dog further. A wolf herder in Yukon sits beside a wolf frozen mid-howl, gray fur coated in thick white ice, mouth open but silent, ears rigid. He taps lightly with his foot on the ice over the wolf's back, snow shattering and falling softly, revealing fur hard as stone. Yet the wolf stands perfectly still, the biting cold freezing his breath into clouds, snow falling to bury it more. An elderly Inuit woman in Greenland touches a sea duck frozen on the frozen lake surface, feathers blanketed in 25 centimeters of snow, wings folded rigid, beak open but breathless. She taps gently with her hand on the ice over the wing, snow cracking and tumbling down, exposing feathers hard as wood. Yet the duck lies motionless, the bone-chilling cold making her tremble, wind whipping snow sideways to cover it again. A group of hunters in Alaska discovers a snowy owl frozen on a branch, white feathers thick with ice, eyes wide and dull, wings rigid. One hunter taps with gloved hand on the ice over the owl's head, snow breaking and falling, revealing feathers hard as rock. Yet the owl remains perched motionless, the minus 68 degrees Celsius cold making them feel their own bodies nearing freeze. A young woman in Nunavut kneels beside a husky-wolf hybrid frozen mid-run, thick fur coated in snow and ice, ears erect and stiff. She taps lightly with her foot on the ice over the tail, snow fracturing and falling softly, exposing fur hard as ice rods. Yet the hybrid stands perfectly still, the freezing cold frosting her tears on her cheeks. An old Yakutia man in Oymyakon touches a young reindeer frozen mid-nursing, small antlers crusted with white ice, fur blanketed in thick snow. He taps gently with his hand on the ice over the antlers, snow shattering and scattering, revealing antlers hard as stone. Yet the calf remains motionless, the piercing cold freezing his breath into thick clouds. A reindeer herder in Greenland sits beside a sheep frozen in sleeping pose, thick wool coated in 35 centimeters of white ice, legs rigid. He taps lightly with his foot on the ice over the back, snow cracking and falling, revealing wool hard as wood. Yet the sheep lies still, snow falling to bury it deeper. A girl in Yukon touches a snow hare frozen mid-hop, white fur buried under 20 centimeters of ice, ears stiff upright. She taps gently with her hand on the ice over the ear, snow breaking and tumbling down, exposing fur hard as steel. Yet the hare stands motionless, the minus 72 degrees Celsius cold freezing her breath. An old hunter in Alaska sits beside an Arctic fox frozen mid-hunt, white fur coated in thick snow and ice, tail stiff. He taps with gloved hand on the ice over the tail, snow shattering and falling softly, revealing fur hard as ice rods. Yet the fox remains still, snow falling to cover it more. A woman in Nunavut kneels beside a seal pup frozen in resting pose, small blubber layer coated in thick white ice, black eyes dull. She taps lightly with her foot on the ice over the back, snow cracking and falling, revealing skin hard as rock. Yet the pup lies motionless, the cold freezing her breath. A group of hunters in Greenland finds a walrus calf frozen beside its mother, small tusks iced over, blubber coated in thick snow. One hunter taps with his foot on the ice over the back, snow breaking and scattering, revealing skin hard as stone. Yet the calf remains still, snow falling to bury it deeper. A boy in Yukon hugs a husky pup frozen in sleeping curl, thick fur matted with snow and ice, blue eyes dull. He taps with his hand on the ice over the fur, snow cracking and clinking down, revealing fur hard as ice rods. Yet the pup remains motionless, snow falling to cover it more. A herder in Alaska sits beside a young caribou frozen standing, small antlers crusted white, fur thick with snow. He taps lightly with his foot on the ice over the leg, snow shattering and falling softly, revealing fur hard as rock. Yet the calf stands still, the cold freezing his breath. A girl in Greenland kneels beside an Arctic hare frozen mid-run, white fur coated in thick ice, ears stiff. She taps gently with her hand on the ice over the ear, snow breaking and tumbling down, revealing fur hard as steel wire. Yet the hare stands motionless, snow falling to bury it deeper. An old hunter in Nunavut touches an Arctic fox frozen mid-stalk, white fur thick with snow and ice, tail stiff. He taps with his hand on the ice over the tail, snow cracking and falling, revealing fur hard as ice rods. Yet the fox remains still, the cold making him shiver. A young woman in Yukon sits beside a seal pup, frozen in resting pose, small blubber layer coated in thick white ice, black eyes dull. She taps lightly with her foot on the ice over the back. Snow shattering and falling softly, revealing skin hard as rock. Yet the pup lies motionless, snow falling to cover it more. A group of children in Alaska finds a snowy owl frozen on a branch, white feathers thick with ice, eyes wide and dull. One child taps with gloved hand on the ice over the head, snow breaking and scattering, revealing feathers hard as stone. Yet the owl remains perched motionless, snow falling to bury it deeper. A herder in Greenland touches a mountain goat frozen standing, thick fur coated in snow and ice, horns stiff. He taps gently with his hand on the ice over the horn. Snow cracking and falling, revealing horn hard as rock. Yet the goat stands still, the cold making him shiver. A young girl in Nunavut kneels beside a wolf, frozen mid-howl, gray fur thick with white ice, mouth open but silent. She taps lightly with her foot on the ice over the back, snow shattering and falling softly.